Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Leanna Allison here at the Institute of Empathic Leadership, and tonight we're talking about owning your inner truth to have powerful relationships. Now, don't we all want that, powerful relationships? And don't we quite often find it in all the wrong places, which is so frustrating. So, let's get started. Now, number one, if we want a strong relationship with somebody, we ultimately have to have a strong relationship with ourselves. And that comes down to actually being really honest with ourselves, having really open communication with ourselves. So really looking at inner self to communicate that honestly to ourselves. And sometimes we need someone to actually help us reflect that, so that we because it's so hard to actually look inside and be really pull away the layers that cover up the things that really what we do, how we communicate, how we practice life, all of those things. So one of the things with what I call is the art of having a relationship is you have to be the love of your life. Now, that just means you have to have self-love. Now, how often have we heard that? So often we have heard that we have to have self-love. Now, that I've heard it, I don't know, for the last 20 years. Oh, you must love yourself. You got to have self-love. And I've always thought, well, how do I do that? Like, it just didn't feel right to be just, running off and having a massage, or eating well, or taking notice of what I wanted to do and prioritizing that. All those things are great, but it wasn't everything. I know I felt like something was missing. Now, this is one of the reasons that we have problems in relationship, is the lack of boundaries. And our boundaries are what we use to maintain our values. Our boundaries are self-love. So if we love ourselves, then we're actually doing what it is that is required to maintain our boundaries and to have consequences to those boundaries. It's also a lack of communication. And that could be because we don't want to be vulnerable, or we don't want to hear what someone else is saying. So our communication skills are more about what we're feeling when someone's talking to us, rather than actually hearing what they've got to say from a place of a lack of emotional triggers. Now, the other thing is we don't actually, and also, Vanda, don't want to open a can of worms, because the can of worms is because we don't want to feel icky. We don't want to feel like what it is that we think we're going to feel like if our communication gets to a level that we're just not comfortable with. But we've got to face the fact that we're never going to be comfortable with going outside of what we normally do. So we just have to get used to and okay with feeling uncomfortable. And if we don't judge it that way, if we actually know that uncomfortable is basically saying that we are about to grow and to be able to change something that's not working for us, then it can be exciting and something to actually use. Now, one of the points I wanted to make this evening was that we search for what's missing in ourselves in others. So we're always looking to have our needs met by others, because our universal needs, the needs that we have not had fulfilled as in our very early childhood, those are the things that we naturally go looking for in other people to fulfill for us. Now, it could be to be loved or to be acknowledged, or that we matter, to be validated and accepted, protected, to be heard, stability, to be respected, and to have our boundaries respected. So these are the things that we need to actually fulfill for ourselves. And you have to excuse me because there is a dog outside who really wants to come inside. So he's making himself known. All right, so all of these needs are the things that actually trigger us into searching for that within somebody else. So if we want to have powerful relationships, we have to be able to fulfill those needs for ourselves first. So if we fulfill our needs bucket, if we fill that up for ourselves, then we will be able to accept it from somebody else without it being an active need. So if we fulfill our need for self-respect, if we respect ourselves fully and act on that, then it will naturally appear in our lives from other people, and we'll be able to accept that from other people. Another one would be to that we matter. So if we matter to ourselves and we fulfill that bucket, fill our bucket up, that we matter for ourselves, if we do that in how we prioritize ourselves and how we fulfill our desires and what we want to actually achieve in our life, if we do that for ourselves, then it will naturally turn up in other people. They will also act in a way that your needs matter. Vanda says, seems like it doesn't cost me anything when this happens, but I'm not sure, like an extra bonus. Yeah, exactly. It does have that feeling to it, Vanda. So when we're doing it for ourselves and it shows up, it is an extra bonus. It's not something that we actually need, but it is something that we want, and it is given to us without any conditions. So we don't have conditions, they don't have conditions, so it's a really easy flow. Just so nice. Okay, Owen, sorry, there's just everyone's coming up under one person's name, so I can't tell who's who, so I apologize for that. Okay, so yep, that is perfect, Owen. So when you're making a comment, if you just want to pop your name in first, and then I'll know who's commenting. For some reason, it's all the attendees are coming up under one name. All right, so the next point I wanted to make is, so we must be the change that we want to experience. So if we want to have powerful relationships with others, we have to action the changes that we want, so that it's not just conceptual. We may understand all of these things, but if we're not doing them, if we're not actioning them, then it's just a concept, and it has to be actually lived to make it real. Because in our conceptual understanding of things, we can have lots of mental understanding of how to do things, how to live and change, to communicate. But if we're not doing it, then it is a concept. And in the doing and in the sharing of that doing, we are gaining wisdom. And in that wisdom, we are living to our true potential. So what else do we have? All right, so as I mentioned earlier, practicing self-love and self-care. Now, if you haven't already worked out what your values are, then that is a really important thing to do, and the boundaries that are required to make those values a livable thing. So you may value, your values will probably also, they're all tied together with your needs. So quite often, if you've got values around mattering or being acknowledged or being validated, they're flowing in from your needs that are required from your childhood. And that way you will then have to know, well, what is the boundary that's required to maintain that? What is the boundary that needs to be in place so that you know that you're living by that value? So the next point, becoming your own best friend. Now, isn't that a nice one? If you were your own best friend, how would you treat yourself? How would you support yourself? How would you respect yourself? So treat yourself as your own best friend, because in a partnership, if we don't do that, we're not going to receive it from somebody else. And other people that we're partnership with and in relationship with can be our mirrors. So if they're mirroring a behavior or a thought or a belief, then that's where you need to go, well, what is that about me? And how can I use that to become more self-aware, to become more able to acknowledge myself? And I apologize for the dog. I'm looking after it. I have no control over it whatsoever. It does what it wants. So a bit like life, really. Anyway, all right. So the next thing is creating meaningful relationships. Now, meaningful relationships come through when you're being really real, when you're being really completely who you are. Now, we don't know who we are fully until the end, if then, because we will uncover layers of ourselves constantly through our life. And if we're on a mission to constantly grow and become more and more of the best version of ourselves, then we will always be looking at change and becoming a better and better version of ourselves. So that means that our relationships will grow and change with us. And if we focus on ourselves, then the relationships will happen organically. Now, that doesn't mean we don't talk to people about what's going on. If someone is breaking one of our requirements in our boundaries, we need to communicate that. We need to be able to say, hang on, that's not okay. If you're treating me in this way, and it might be with disrespect, then that's not okay, and this is what I expect. And if that's not actually happening, then this is the consequence. So quite often we have to do this, actually sit down and write down all these things so we get it really clear in ourselves, so that we can actually then talk about it and communicate it and live it. So Vanda says, I'm harder on myself than anyone is. I'm always been like this, and I'm slowly learning to be better. Yeah, and that's around the friendship thing, isn't it, Vanda? We have to be our best friend. And if we're hard on ourselves and we're got high expectations, that perfectionism can be really, really hard, and it makes us hard to relax and to accept ourselves fully in who we are, which then makes it really difficult for us to relax around someone else and accept them fully for who they are. So Owen says, do you evaluate the cost first of telling someone your boundaries? Well, it really depends on who you're speaking with, Owen, because if we're needing to maintain our boundaries, we will do that differently and with different levels of compassion and understanding, depending on if we're talking to a stranger or if we're talking to a friend or a family member or our personal partner. the different style of communication will come into play in those cases. So that's where the flexibility comes in, and the emotional mastery and awareness is where you can judge what is appropriate in each particular situation. Still able to stand by the absolute no-go zone in your boundaries and your values, but doing it in a way that works for you in that situation. Does that help, Olwen? Okay. Yes, great. All right. So I want to actually just share my screen with you because I want to draw something. Where are we? Share. I just want to draw a diagram for you on the whiteboard so that you can actually see this for yourself. So first of all, what I'm going to draw is a couple of triangles. They probably will a bit wobbly, but there we go. And these are actually tetrahedrons. So they're three-dimensional and in the center. So what we're going to do, this is what we have to be to have good relationships. This is what we've got to be. So in the center, if we have, in a good relationship, we have to have connection, don't we? So we pop connection in there. And up the top, what we have to have and give is love. And down here, the other thing that we have to have and give is respect. And in this particular corner, what we have to have and give is care. Now, this diagram is something that you can actually draw yourself and concentrate on these four things to actually gauge whether you are doing all of these three things to have really deep connection with yourself and with others. Now, let me draw another one over here. This one's going to be a bit straighter because I'm going to use straight lines. How's that? Oops. Try that again. There we go. And across. There we go. Isn't it great having a dog in the background? Okay, so, and then we have the circle in the middle. Love these diagrams, don't you? So this one is what you have to express. So let's, up here, this is what you have and give. Oops. And this is what you express. Now, in the center, we have love. And up the top, we have emotions. Pop that over there. And down here, we have needs. And over here, we have bigger boundaries. Nope, boundaries. So if we need to be expressive in our relationships and our connection, we need to express love. And we do that through our emotions, our needs, and our boundaries. So we have to be able to recognize what our needs are have boundaries around those needs, and to accept and honor the emotions that go with that, so that we're running this cycle to actually then have love. Same with this, we must have love, care and respect to have true connection. Now, I hope these two things are really, really powerful. So I really wanted to share with you tonight, so that you've got these to work with yourself ongoing. Okay, so I'll just save that. Okay. All right. So there we are, back again. All right. So tonight we're not going to actually have a meditation as such. I don't think it'll be much good with the dog barking in the background, but I really would like some feedback on those two diagrams and what it is that the understanding you've got about them. And is it helpful to actually see the visual of the concepts that we're talking about? So you can actually see the visual pattern of what it is that you have to do to achieve the connection and the love that's in the center of those two diagrams. So any feedback on that would be fantastic. And those of you that are actually watching the recording, if you have any questions or want to know more, you're quite welcome to contact me. So, and first diagram seems easy, and expressing one quite complex. The expression one is, that's something where you need to really know what those needs are, and the boundaries and the emotions that go with them. And that can take some work. So that's probably where we need to actually do some one-on-one work to get really clear on that, so that you can really connect in and have that self-love. That's absolutely vital. Jess, makes sense. Actually, I think I'm on the right path. Excellent, Jess. Well done. That's great to hear. Really, really good. Love it. All right. So, what I'm offering tonight, if anyone would like to have a chat about any of that, you can get a free 15-minute chat with me, and that'll be in the link to that will be in the email that will come out with this recording. So if you have any questions or anything like that, it's just an informal chat. There's no pressure involved, but I'd much rather that you actually make a time to chat with me to actually get clear on that, particularly if, like, you had inquiries about that second diagram, Owen. We will chat further about that, and that way it just gets clear and it doesn't take too long. All right, I want to thank everybody for being on tonight, and for everyone who's actually listening into the recording. Remember, you can find me at, actually tonight, one of those things I'd love you to do is join my Facebook group. It's Empathic Leadership is the name of it, and that way you can actually get not only access to all these free webinars, but you'll also get the lives that I do periodically throughout the week on all sorts of different things, and support, which is what we're all looking for, isn't it? All right. Thank you so much for being with me. And don't forget, we'll be back on I think it's the second Tuesday in November. So that will be available to you. It's actually available now on the Leanna Allison Institute of Empathic Leadership page. So I will invite you to that. If you don't get an invite, just check it out on the page in the events section, and you will be able to register so that you get all the reminders. All right, take care for now. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye.